Well, the Sharks decide to come up a little bit short in that third period. It could have been worse, but it definitely could have been better as they drop their first meeting ever to the Seattle Kraken. Myself and Al Martinet will be checking out all that action and some disturbing trends on the horizon. That and more on this edition of Teal Town After Dark. But first, if you want to be a part of the show, check us out on all the social media channels, that being the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the YouTube chat. We've also got the SoundCloud, the Reddit, and all the shenanigans going down in the Discord. Check us out on all the social plus everything else on tealtownusa.com. Well, I'd be happy to be joined by Al Martinet this evening going over this particular one. And Al, I mean, quickly, wide brush thoughts. What just Sharks coming up short in that third period, but kind of making some lazy and lackadaisical plays. What from you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought for a good 40 minutes the Sharks had most of the grade A opportunities, but by the fact that they didn't cash in on those chances, they kind of kept the Kraken in it. And give Kraken the credit, they really had the best third period compared to the Sharks. But this was a game the Sharks should have had, and they just kind of let it slip by.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it any more succinctly than that. Starting off on this game tonight, we had James Reimer in net versus Chris Drieger. And you thought maybe the goaltending was going to play a little bit of a role here, but it not only did that, but it did more. And through those first two periods, in that first period, where there was no scoring, but the shots on goal were 11-8 in favor of Seattle. The Sharks, in my opinion, kind of looking a little flat, kind of coming out. It seemed like they were waiting. The Sharks were kind of waiting into the period, kind of seeing what style Seattle was going to bring. To me, it was definitely a style that was pushing the dump and chase. They seemed physical, but I wouldn't say overtly physical. And they try to do a lot of crash and bang plays, very very typical from a team that's kind of just starting to come together. So very simple
Yeah.
game plan. And I mean, Al, what did you think was just working for the Kraken in that first period?
I mean, for the Kraken, their strength is their defense. They have a really solid blue line. Their goaltending, it's kind of iffy. I know they had the backup in tonight, but getting Grubauer from Colorado was probably a steal in my book. But their big weakness is just who's going to score for them consistently. And this is sort of a team that if you get, one goal ahead, it kind of changes the basics for what they're going to do going forward. And if they do get a lead, it just plays right into their hand. Luckily, the Sharks, they made it 1-2, but like that was off of a lucky bounce that, Couture was there, but he cashed in. But also just you're playing, if you're not going to take advantage of your opportunities in the first 20 to 40 minutes, you're really just letting one of your Pacific rivals or Pacific, no, not a rival at this point, but Pacific teams stay in.
A division rival, yeah.
Not yet. It's only one game.
I mean, within the division, but yeah, no, I definitely understand. I think it was definitely a wasted opportunity. One, I think, to really show, just kind of dictate the terms of how these interactions are going to go between the Sharks and the Kraken. And you really wanted to see the Sharks, establish some good territorial presence even in that first period. And again, it just seemed like a team that was waiting for the play to be dictated to them, and they didn't really seem to put their game plan to work there. And normally, when the Sharks are rolling, we see a lot of those high point shots. We see a lot of traffic in front of the net. One line that kind of stood out for me in that first period, though, was Hurdle's line. He seemed to be able to generate quite a few offensive chances. And Benino's line looked pretty decent as well. But the
Yeah.
Couture line, just brutal. And I also think that the Gadjevich Peterson line was also a little rough to watch. And I think we're starting to see a little bit, and I don't know if you're kind of this opinion too, but we've now been in back-to-back games where the Sharks have only scored 3 goals in 2 games, and I think a little bit of the lack of depth here is starting to show with both Balsers and LeBanc, coming out of the lineup, both being injured.
I
So I think
mean,
it's starting to manifest itself a little bit.
yeah, I mean, the big criticism with Hill is that like he's been decent, but the team hasn't given enough goal support. And eventually Reimer was going to have those type of games. Now Reimer's been great. Like there's no, I don't think this is you can put anything on him for that. I think the goals that he let in, like the first goal in the third period where the puck goes off Simic, completely not his fault. But you know,
Even the second goal. I mean, the second goal, they were in the Sharks were now kind of going into that scramble mode, where they're doing a lot of offensive pinches, and it's high risk, high reward time because, by the time that we get to there, and we will get to it in a second. But I think at that point, the team had already started to resign to its fate. And I think that they kind of left Reimer out to dry on that second one, too. But going through the second period, so we go through the first period scoreless. And then going into the second period, I thought that the team did a good job in rebounding. I thought that they had a lot more jump to their game. But to me, Al, there was lack of finish, especially because we didn't get any goals. But the other thing that kind of I started noticing, and it really crept into the game into that third period, was the lazy shift changes. I was seeing guys out on
yeah,
the ice 2 minutes 30 seconds. Mario Ferraro, I'm circling you on this one. Eric Carlson over 2 minutes in stretches. And to me, that's the epitome of the lazy playing, right? And you could start to see that the team started to sag after those guys took extended shifts, and especially in their own defensive zone because they got hemmed. And I think really in that second period is where the Kraken started to be a little bit more physical, and I think that they started to wear down the guys and keep them out there, which I think ultimately won them the game in the third.
I mean, if you look at just how the game flow was, I mean, when the Kraken were up 2-0, and there was that stretch where Hurdle, Eric Carlson, Ferraro, like those guys were on the ice for again 2 minutes straight because they couldn't get the puck out of their own zone. Some of that I think was just frustration. We keep on talking about their missed opportunities. Like I'll go back to the first period again. Like Eric Carlson had a decent shot and like to get a shot from the point, and instead he throws the puck across to the blue line, giving it basically to the Kraken player, and you have a 2-on-1 that could have given you a 1-0 Kraken lead about 5 or 6 minutes into the first period.
Yeah.
And like I
Yeah,
felt
it really
like
set the pace, didn't it?
I mean, like, and the thing that most annoys me is like when the Sharks start to get really fancy because they have the talent, and like, Eric Carlson's been really good for the past, let's just say the past 10 games, but when
Yeah.
he's being super flashy, like, I get it. We're paying him like a superstar and he's supposed to be, but like when he keep things simple, like the last, like when he's been on this couple of stretches, like I just want him to shoot the puck, and that's what he's been doing.
Yeah, and it's like, why now are you starting to defer and becoming a little trigger shy? And like you were saying on that 2-on-1, I remember it as well. It just seemed like he passed up a really good opportunity to put the puck on the net. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a little bit of like overconfidence, right? I think he's now in the feeling the good mojo, the points are coming or whatever. So, now he wants to try and start doing the dazzle moves and stuff. And it's like, look, you're doing good right now. You're at least partially bringing the statistics now to back the contract. Don't reinvent the wheel here, dude. Just keep to your game and continue to put the puck on the net. And I know that his first instinct is to naturally dazzle, but I think you got to start to understand that if you guys are going to go somewhere, it's going to be playing within a system.
I mean, like even like excusing that like blunder in the first, like the Sharks still were pretty good in the second period.
Outside of
And
the power play, and
yeah,
I wanted to go over that because we've been talking about the special teams now, oscillating between the penalty kill being very good to taking some stumbles and step backs, to the Sharks not gaining a lot of power plays, and now all of a sudden they had a couple good games on the power play, but it just seems like this power play is still not able to take advantage of key opportunities. And by that I mean tonight they had one power play opportunity, and that power play didn't look and didn't understand that it was going to be a low penalty affair. I mean, they should have
yeah.
gotten that from the first period with the lack of whistles, but they didn't adapt and they didn't take advantage of that power play, and that left a real sour taste in my mouth. And I don't know about you, but again, deferment to want to shoot the puck on net. This power
Hmm.
play is most dangerous when they're causing chaos in front of that net and getting the two big weapons from the back, putting that on net.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, that's it. But when I see the power play being really good is when the forwards start carrying the puck and they start actually shooting the puck there. When the power play is at its worst is when, no offense to Brent Burns and no offense to Eric Carlson, but like when they start to rely on that shot, of course the defense is going to, basically shuffle the deck and basically wait for that point shot, and then you're going to get to create more opportunities for a shorthanded goal. That didn't happen tonight, but again, like we could not be. I mean, regardless of the power play and regardless of the first period, like it could have been 1-0 going into the third if I
They
forget who.
executed. Yeah, if they executed.
I mean, like not even just that, but I forget who the Kraken player put his stick out and just
Oh,
basically
Larson.
stops the Larson,
Yeah.
Adam Larson. Thank you. Puts his stick out and just stops the puck, like he just like knows he's gonna shoot the puck. Like, um, there's certain times when you're just not gonna win, and I think that's was the case tonight. But I don't think tonight was a lack of effort tonight. Like I think
No, no.
Nieta was great, but Bardov was great. Um,
I think it was just lack of execution mentally for me. That was kind of what I was seeing tonight,
yeah,
and I think the other thing too that I kind of hone in on is the selfish play. I think tonight we saw a little bit of selfish play creep into the into the team, and when this team is pulling on the rope in the same direction, I think it can do some really heavy lifting. But tonight I felt that there were a lot of different guys that after that first period really thought that they were going to take it upon themselves to try and get the next goal instead of working on the dump and chase, working on the chip, and I just, to me, this is again that a team that needs to grow up a little bit insofar as when things don't go your way, you need to still continue at the game plan. Don't
yeah.
try and in defer when you've got a clean shot on net. I mean, we saw Timo, defer a couple different times when he could have gotten that puck on net. Um, and so for me, that's when I start to highlight the lack of mental execution there, and that's what I saw
Yeah.
It wasn't, physicality. I mean, Simic played a hell of a game tonight. I thought Vlasic looked really decent tonight. I thought there were individual players that stood out in playing good games, and I think that showed up through that defensive effort we saw through the first two periods. But they didn't give themselves. Because we're not having puck luck tonight. It just wasn't going their way. You have to generate and manufacture your own puck luck, and I felt like they weren't doing
Yeah.
that part of it.
I mean, I thought they did that decently for those first two periods, but that third period, I thought they were just winded. And when the Kraken got the first goal,
Yeah,
it just fed right into their game style. But like,
yeah,
but even before the game, there was a bunch of lines switching, or the classic line blender going on with Bob Budner, where LeBanc was out because of a hit from the Dallas game. And early reports from some of the reporters is that he could potentially have surgery. And
yeah. I think it was his shoulder. I think when he was going into the boards and he kind of rocked his shoulder, kind of funky, and
I don't want to play doctor, but it looked like shoulder, maybe. Yeah, I didn't watch much of the Dallas game, but like, you know, even like LeBanc, who has been kind of demoted to third and fourth line duties, um, I'm glad he got his contract when he did, because thankfully,
it's good to be him, right?
thankfully he cashed in before that. But like, um, he's been one of the earlier disappointments for this team so far, because you would have hoped, along with Timo, along with Hurdle, and along the bank, that's your cornerstone you're building with. But you have to be kind of worried where he's going down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So now going into the third period, the Kraken score 6 minutes in, and I'm just looking at it here. Unfortunately, the Sharks are tracking good into their own defensive zone. They get a little bit of a mix-up with Chimik kind of going back towards the net. The puck then is shot on net, rebounds really funky right off of Chimik's shin into the net. Ryan Donato would get credit with that goal. But
and that was Donskoy's 200th point.
Yeah, Donskoy's 200 point. But yeah, the scoring play was Ryan Donato's sixth from Donskoy and Susi. And I think you visibly saw the team started to shrug their shoulders after that one, because they kind of felt like they had some really good chances, especially that larceny on the goal line. And
okay.
and I think after they saw that puck luck just really not be in their favor, I saw a collective letdown. And I think that letdown was exactly feeding into the game plan that you had said, Al. And in there, they just try to keep it low scoring. They try to keep it really boring. And then once they do get the goal, then they start to kind of, want to dictate play a little bit in the offensive zone. And we saw that, and Brandon Tenev then, gets his ninth on the season, Geeky and Yarncroke, and it made it 2-0. And all of a sudden the Sharks are down 2-0 with 6 minutes left. The Sharks pulled the goalie, and I think maybe the first time all season they've scored a goal with the goal tender.
It's been a while. It felt like that was I was like, oh wow, they can actually score on a 6-on-5, because normally when it's 6-on-5 there's less room. It's normally just for flair, but it was a classic teaser goal.
Yeah, I think it was it was the 6-on goal. It was the 6-on-5 goal with Couture, facing down on the empty net. It was a really weird bounce again off of a Kraken player, and it just happened to pot on Couture's, stick, and he was able to get his ninth of the season with Burns and Hurdle, getting the assists there. So it was good to see that the team got the goal, and they did really tease us out. There was a good, I would say, minute of zone time after that goal where the Sharks, Hurdle, if he would have just grabbed that puck and corralled it just a little bit longer, he could have gotten the empty net. But
honestly, I don't know what he was thinking. Like you're taught, like, just from basic, even beginners hockey, never to throw the puck in the middle of the zone. Like, either pass it up the boards, rely on your forwards. But like he just blindly threw it up in the middle of the ice, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and we could be looking like a total collapse from Seattle, and the Sharks could be getting at least a point here. But like, you know,
Yeah,
I
that's so
I
Sharks,
think
right?
this this was just one of those games where like the puck bounces didn't really just go the way for the Sharks, and a simple dump in and then having a nice flashy pass for Tanev, like that's your game winner, and that's hockey for you. And but one of the big problems this year is just the lack of consistent scoring.
Yeah.
We've seen 1-2 all the time in the third period, and then like against Calgary it was like 4-1, and that looks great right now, but like of course that was two empty netters.
Yeah, it was 2-1 going into that third, and yeah, the Sharks have been a part of a lot of low scoring games. Something kind of interesting coming up. You know, Hurdle is so gone after this game from Fanatical Teal Bleeder, and thanks Fanatical for throwing up that comment. And I mean I don't think so. Again, I think the team is going to really have that mentality that hey, the bounces just weren't with us tonight. Now, again, I'm saying that there's also some there's some mental fatigue that they got to fight through, and they've got to show me a little bit more character going through that. But by no means is this like a demoralizing loss. I mean, by no means is
No.
this going to be like, oh, okay, well, now that we've lost to these upstarts, the woe is me. I don't get that, and I don't get that from this team. I mean, they kept it. They kept it tied through two periods of play,
I
and
mean, yeah, it was consistent effort for two periods, but like for me, a demoralizing loss is like the games versus Washington, the games
oh
versus
yeah,
Colorado.
the
Like you're
Colorado
talking
one was
like,
really bad.
well, yeah, but like for me, like the Sharks right now have 7 games in a row at home, and I believe I said like against Calgary that they had to win 4 out of 7 to at least stay pace. They won against Dallas, which is kind of shocking, but like you should have really gotten a win against Seattle.
Yeah.
Now Vancouver is coming in red hot all of a sudden, and we're playing back-to-back games on the 16th and the 21st. And whatever happens with the schedule and the COVID, I'm sure we're going to get into that. But like,
Yeah.
um, this feels like a real missed opportunity. But like, you're still getting a consistent 40-minute effort, and if they just cashed in those first two periods, you would have at least been feeling a lot better tonight.
Yeah, well, Calle Croak would end the night with the empty netter. It's his second goal on the season. Appleton and Winberg with the assists there. And quickly just kind of running down the stats tonight. James Reimer 931 save percentage. So you can't put this on goaltending. That's the other thing too. I think he has been really calming back there, really steadied the ship, and really kept them in the first in that first 10 minutes of the first period. Looking over on the time on ice, we got Brent Burns clocking in at 25. Not bad. And Eric Carlson coming in at 24:37. Ferraro coming in at 22. Shimmick at 14, or almost 15 minutes. Vlasic at 13. Middleton at 18. So I'm really liking that ice time distribution on the back end. I think it really kind of
Yeah.
showed how defensively cohesive that unit was, and I don't think that they should be tweaking much more in and around that unit right now. I think keep these guys together, because they did do a good job. But if we look up on the forward side, I mean, Gadjevich 8 minutes and 49 seconds, Weatherby 9 minutes, Pedersen
Yeah.
9:35. They were all -1. I'm looking at their face-off percentages, not good.
Yeah, for me, like if you're looking at just time on ice, like Nieto only has about 16 minutes of ice time, and I thought he was consistent with every shift. And I would have liked to see him. Maybe you shuffle him up to the third or second line, just see if that creates a spark. But to get back to the defense 1 second, like Vlasic only 13 minutes, and again, he's playing with Simic, but like Simic had a great game tonight, I thought, in my book. And normally this season, Eric Carlson's been playing about 22 minutes, 23 minutes. Um, I don't know if there's something wrong with Vlasic again, because 13 minutes for what you're paying for is just not good enough. And we can
Well,
get into Eric Carlson. We can get into like what was
I
happening
think
to
it
him,
was
but
going to
like,
be. I mean, honestly, I didn't see any kind of like injury or anything kind of like that. But what I did see was again kind of the overconfidence from Eric Carlson. And if you're going to give Eric Carlson extra minutes, it's got to come at somebody's expense.
yeah, like again, like you would figure maybe he gets more than that, 16, 17, but just to spell Eric Carlson a little bit. And maybe that's hats off to Seattle, because there was a stretch, like we talked about in the third period, where they really did keep that line on for a good 2 minutes. So maybe that's just game flow.
Yeah, yeah. I again, I see that lack of execution mentally, and it it presents itself to me is or are those are those shift lengths. To me, that's really when I see the team is engaged and when I see the team is really wanting to, move the puck in the same direction on any given night. I just look at how quick they are to get off the ice, how quick they are to move up the puck, and again, I think we should also give a little bit of hats off to the Kraken because they played a very stifling brand of play, and it was very reminiscent of Coyotes. How the Coyotes play. And I think that there's a little bit to be said about their effort too. But again, I think you just look at the disparage in talent and you look at what the Sharks have and what the Kraken have. You're just left with the bitter taste in your mouth. And again, whether we want to say it's if it's a mental thing or if we want to say it's has to do with the way in which maybe some coaching and implementation stuff as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, these are 2 points that you needed to have, and you
I
didn't
mean,
get it.
this is the last team in the division, so you have to cash in on these points.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the longer this momentum goes for the Sharks, I don't know what's going to happen with Hurdle. That's like, because in my book, like if the Sharks wind up keeping Hurdle and they make the playoffs and they lose in the first round, like what's the point? Like we've been through that. And if there's a handshake deal between Doug and Hurdle to give him X amount of dollars, um, I wonder what it is. Because
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right because I think now we're going to start to play a little bit into a little bit more of the schedule keeping and stuff from the NHL and kind of what's been going on. But you've got some COVID news coming up that a lot of teams are getting players put onto the COVID list. I think it's up to 7 teams now have players on the COVID list.
7 teams. Let me just look up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and now that
So yeah.
there's some considerations on the Beijing Olympics and how much time they'll need to quarantine because I think the quarantines have now gone up to 3 weeks overseas. So now we're talking about having to cancel the players' participation into the games. And maybe using the time as the buffer to make up for some of these games that we're missing. But Al, if we start to see a rise in increase in the cases, do you think we're got another shutdown on the table?
Okay, so the 7 teams are Boston, Calgary, Carolina, and Carolina seems like it's getting worse right now. Colorado, Edmonton, New York Islanders, and they've been dealing with that for about 2 weeks, and Vancouver. There's been 21 players in the last 36 hours. And currently, right now, the Hurricanes and Wild game has been postponed.
Yeah.
So, of course, the Sharks just played Minnesota, but it's more or less attributed to the Hurricanes who are dealing with a COVID surge.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know what's going to happen because when the players, did the CBA again, one of their main things that they wanted was to go to the Olympics. And it's sounding right now that players like McDavid are still interested in going, But of course, like I think over the weekend, Vegas defenseman Alex Pietrangelo was saying that he wouldn't go because the NHL has kind of been rumoring to put a 3 week, I think what they called it, a 3 week quarantine for players returning back. And they've kind of made it clear that for players playing in the Olympics, they don't get any money. It's basically up to them to actually do it.
Yeah.
So this little break right here, actually, there's also an All-Star game that's right before that too.
Right,
So,
right. And the trade
like,
deadline is right in there as well. So that's kind of where I was getting at was, there's a lot of moving parts right now. And I don't know if that's a good thing for the hurdle talks or if it's, maybe it's kind of more of a wait and see because I feel like that has been how they've approached the entire year so far.
yeah,
But I think getting back to the question and getting back to the chat, I still think that if you are going to somehow get rid of Evander Kane, that you've got to bring back Hurdle at this point. I from a pure talent forward on the talent forward side of things, the team just can't lose two of their top five scorers and still expect to make a playoff run. And I don't see the team mortgaging him off. One, I think I think he's important to the culture of the club, and I think he's important to selling tickets as well. From what few tickets that have been getting sold.
yeah, that's a different topic,
But
I mean,
I think there are a lot of things that to me are spelling that a Hurdle is more likely to resign than to walk at this point, especially the way in which they're handling Kane. I was on kind of more of the pessimistic side. I was like, look, I think he might be even back into back on the roster at some point because this is a team that's kind of frugal with their money. They don't like paying players that they don't that are not playing, and I just took a really pessimistic view of the front office, and they have actually surprised me in that they've kept him in the NA or in the AHL, and I think
if the team it wasn't performing as well, like let's say they get off to a Kraken start where they like start 9-15 at this point, I think you bring back Kane and do all that. But like again, Kane has not made it easy for the Sharks either, where his three teams that he put on his trade list were of course Winnipeg, Buffalo, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's just not going to happen. And
wait,
I
he
think
put those three teams on his list.
Yep.
Why would he want to go back to Winnipeg?
Because he's making it impossible to move, and also I think that there's probably some movement for him to basically put a few more teams in there. But honestly, I don't know, and I'm sick and tired of talking about Kane because Kane's a different subject altogether.
But I think the reason why I bring him up is because that's where the money's coming from, right? I
think what you do instead is you trade Simic. You get that contract off the books. You look at players like just Nieto, maybe you take him off the books. You take some of your short-term contracts and you free up cap space that way for Hurdle. And right now it's looking like potentially 7 to 9 million for Hurdle, in my book. If you ask for 10, that's just outrageous. But
it's got to be at least 7.5. I think 7.5 is where they start playing ball.
Yeah, like that's like I believe Hurdle was what, 8? Or no, Hurdle Couture is 8.
Yeah, and I would assume that he's going to get like a similar, a similar type deal as Hurdle. It's really hard for me to put a percentage on it at this point for me. I think I'm still of the opinion. Okay.
I think somehow you got Puck Guy's internet.
I guess we're back. We hope that you're back around with us.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Well, what the hell happened? I have no idea.
I've never seen anything like that.
Uh,
Yeah, blame the
maybe
5G.
maybe
Blame the
maybe
5G.
it's the rain. Who the hell knows? But it was so we're back. So we were just, yeah, I guess lamenting the fact that the Sharks didn't get those points tonight.
Yeah.
And going over, how that affected the whole trade watch with Hurdle. And like I said, I don't think it affects it all that much, and I still think we're in the wait and see mode at this point.
Yeah, like again, like it's not. I don't think Kane's much of a factor here. I think anything, if you're looking for a time to move Kane, it's during the off season. And like, I think the worst case scenario for the Sharks is if they trade Kane's contract with they try to split it three ways. Hurdle's going to have all the advantage in the world. So, like, honestly, the biggest issue would be like, hey, trade your first round draft pick and do all this stuff. But like, if Hurdle's still gonna demand a 9.5 to 10, I don't know what you do.
So, do you think, in your opinion, then, if at this point, if Kane is still on the books, Hurdle's team is in a position to not ask for as much? Is that kind of what you're saying? And if he's
Hurdle,
not on the books, then he'll ask for more?
I mean, honestly, like, I don't think Kane's much of a factor because like, I think Simic is going to be gone. I think the Sharks are going to find a way to create cap space for his cap hit.
Yeah.
I think that's the bigger issue. But it all depends on how much he asks. If he asks more than 9.5, like, in my book, I would definitely trade Hurdle and get, maybe a first round draft pick, maybe a first and a second, depending on the team. I'm not in the fan of going through the long season, going through what happens with COVID, and just for the Sharks to make the playoffs and lose for 4.
Oh, I love it, jerk. If Hurdle demands 9.5 to 10, you tell him to take a hike. Did he turn into Leon Draisaitl?
That's essentially what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, but you know what, dude? I mean, honestly, I look at a team like Boston where they're salivating over Tomas Hertl. Like I tuned into one of the national games, and they're talking. The Boston Bruins are targeting Hertl, and they want to make him the cornerstone of the future or whatever. And I wouldn't put it past Jeremy Jacobs to offer him $10 million.
I mean, honestly, like, the reason why Boston is still one of the consistent, contenders is that, like, Marchand, all those frontline players have all kind of taken club-friendly deals.
Marty T, check, German, gold jacket, green jacket. Yeah, exactly. It just seems like they have a really good rapport with Czech players over in Boston, and
True.
Yeah, and I think that should also be kind of highlighted too. Well, let's go over the the favorite part of the show, shall we?
Let's do it.
Have the goddamn common courtesy to give him a reach around.
Well, it's that time that you know and love. It is time for your NHL reach around. And speak of the devil, as we were talking about those Boston Bruins, the Golden Knights beat the Bruins 4-1. Shea Theodore, Max Pacioretty, Marchessault, and Pacioretty again in the second period were your scoring for the Golden Knights, and they beat the Bruins 4-1. The Lightning take a game against the Kings in overtime, 3-2. Victor Hedman, Radish, and Joseph with your goals there for the Lightning. You're going over now to the Eastern Conference. The Senators and Panthers. Oh my goodness, the Senators beat up on the Panthers 8-2. Watson, Gambrell, Norris, Stützle, Norris again, Batherson, Kachuk, and Paul, all with your goals for the Senators. The Panthers only mustering 2 goals. Huberdeau and Reinhart. Now over to some Metro Division shenanigans. The Flyers beat up on the Devils 6-1. Sanheim, Atkinson, Justin Braun, Cam Atkinson, Limbaum, and Cam Atkinson again with the 6 goals for the Flyers. They beat again the Devils 6-1. The Canadiens lose to the Penguins 5-2. Kapanen, I don't know. I can't read that one. Matheson, Dumoulin, and Boyle with the goals. I'm guessing Rodigue? I don't know. 5-2 against the Canadiens. The Penguins beating them. Red Wings beat the Islanders 2-1. Larkin and Rasmussen with the goals for the Red Wings. The Sabres beat the Jets 4-2. Bjork, Dahlin, and Skinner with the goals for the Sabres. The Blues beat the Stars 4-1 with Parayko, Falk, O'Reilly, and Tarasenko with the goals for the Blues. The Avalanche beat the Rangers 4-2. Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, Nichushkin with 2 goals for the Avalanche. The Maple Leafs beat the Oilers 5-1. Austin Matthews with 2 goals. Simmons, Brody, and Riley with the other goals. The Canucks beat the Blue Jackets 4-3, and I think Al had mentioned that the Canucks are starting to heat up coming into San Jose. Very, very interesting and what that game is going to kind of come to look like on Thursday. Horvat, Pedersen, Podkolzin, and Horvat with the goals. And yeah, I mean, you've got now a Canucks team kind of on the roll here coming in. Quickly, Al, what are your thoughts on that game, and where do you think the Sharks are gonna be at? Where do you think the headspace will be?
I mean, again, it's back-to-back games, the 16th and 21st. There's a nice little break between. Whatever happens right now, they have a lot of momentum. I think they really need to win this game and then see what happens going forward. Again, both games are at home. And, like before the season started, a lot of people were picking Vancouver to at least make it to the wild card.
I was one of them.
And I like Pedersen. I like Hughes. I like Hughes a lot. And they have a lot of talent. And I don't know if, again, Vancouver is a very rough hockey town to deal with. But, they changed their coach. They changed their GM. They changed a lot of things. And things seem to be getting back on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think Edmonton, I think Vancouver really is going to wake up a little bit and get that dead cat bounce from all of the changes. And I think maybe the team is starting to respond to the fact that they're playing for jobs now. I mean, you're getting a totally new regime coming in, and they're going to take a look at everything. So we'll see. And we'll see, again, how the Sharks respond. I hope that they come out with some piss and vinegar in their game and really put it to them in the first 10 minutes of that first period for the Sharks. Because these weak starts have been the Achilles heel, I think, for the team, and they've gotten better as the game goes on. And again, that's really good to see those signs of growth. But now you got to start putting the whole game together and start making some hay against the division opponents, especially because we don't get a lot of division opponents up until second half of the season. Now, so with that loss tonight, the Sharks now fall 15-13-1 with 31 points. They're 5th in the Pacific Division, still 1 point out of a wild card spot. So the Sharks really do need to, make up some ground and get back into this fight. Al, final thoughts and where the people can find you.
I thought it was a great 40-minute effort. Shame that they kind of ruined it in the last 20 minutes, but. There were some good things in there, but overall, it needs to just be a little bit more consistent and just finish the chances. You can find me on Twitter at @AlMartinet. I'm always talking hockey. I will probably see you on Thursday.
Yeah, and I'm at Eric Landy across all the social media garbage using my first name. That's ErikLandi. As far as my final thoughts go, I just really need to see some better mental execution from the team. I think again, the team's got to really start coming out with a little bit more fire in the bellies in that first period. And yeah, I mean, for all of us, we appreciate you checking us out. In case you missed us, check us out across all of the different podcasting platforms. That would be the Apple Podcast, the Google Play Store, the YouTube Replay, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, and of course, iHeartRadio. And let's see if I can get this right, shall we? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it teal. Let's keep it real, Teal. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you after the game on Thursday.